Can you go back? What was one of your best memories and experience at the Alliance All-Star game last year?
Probably one of my most fun memories throughout the whole All-Star experience is meeting some of the girls that I would play with and in college in the future play against, because this past year I played against a lot of the girls who were on my All-Star team. So yeah, I think just making the relationships and meeting new teammates and new players who are legit just was super cool. And like I follow a lot of them now, like we're still friends. So I think just building the relationships.
All right. Well, welcome to the Car Ride Home podcast. I'm excited today. You are our first current college athlete to join me in the car. Jocelyn Erickson, welcome to the Car Ride Home.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Well, I am pumped to talk a little bit about your background. I'll go through it. You are the reigning Alliance Fastpitch Championship Series national champion. I see you have your shirt on too, which is really, really cool.
Yes.
Just won last summer, won the 18U national championship. You're one of our Alliance All-Stars. Also, Triple Crown winner. We're going to talk about that. Won the Triple Crown of the AFCS, meaning you led batting average, home runs, and RBIs, which is incredible in any championship event. And just recently announced now with the University of Florida Gators. So first thing we got to do, I do this on every car ride. We got to set the stage if we're in the car. So you're in charge of the music. Okay. What kind of music are we listening to?
Country. Maybe a little Morgan Wallen, Zach Bryan.
Well, I like it. A
little chill car ride.
Even before the game?
Oh, before a game? Probably 2000s, like hip hop, that type of vibe.
I like it.
Throwback jams.
When you had just been born or not born yet. I respect it. It's like,
yeah.
Next most important, besides music, is where are we eating on the car ride home?
Car ride home, where are we eating? I love Cafe Rio. That's like my type of vibe. I don't know if there's some in California. I think it's kind of just like a Arizona, Utah type of thing, but it's like Mexican. I think it's better than Chipotle. Some people disagree with me, but I love Cafe Rio, especially because I didn't have it back at college, so I always get it when I come home.
I like it. Okay. If we're on the car ride, are you driving or would you prefer to be the passenger?
I'll drive. I like being in control.
All right. See, a catcher. That says a lot. Probably.
Yeah.
Too. When I ask you, obviously, growing up in Arizona and probably driving quite a bit to tournaments or practice, or you probably spend a lot of time in the car. When I ask you, what's your most memorable car ride home? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
I mean, me and my dad really drove. Like, we drove to California pretty much every weekend for like 4 years. So there were a lot of car rides home. I slept a lot of the time, but most memorable, I don't know. I just love like spending time with my dad and just like learning more about him, because like before we would like drive 30 minutes maybe to practice, but we had hours to talk with each other, and so we became like super close. Like, my dad is one of my best friends, and I think he's one of the smartest people ever. Like, he has so much good advice. But yeah, I think just getting to know him more and like hearing his stories throughout life has definitely like helped me in my life. So
what was that drive? How far is that to go from your home in the Phoenix area to California?
It's about like 6 hours.
So you're doing that every weekend?
Like 12 hours there and back.
For practice too?
Yeah.
Nice. When did that?
My dad was very determined we were never going to miss a weekend.
That is a lot of bonding time, but it clearly it paid off. And I think that's why I wanted to do this podcast too, honestly, because I just think it's one of the things we all have in common. Spending time in the car, whether it's with a family member, sometimes your teammates, whoever it is, we're going to and from practice and games and tournaments, and there's some pivotal moments in there as well. What were your parents like, especially after a game, after a tournament? Tell us what the mood, what the environment was like in a car, depending on the situation.
Well, I guess it depends on, like, if my team did good or not. And it really kind of just based off my mood. Like, my parents were always very patient, and they never were, like, super aggressive or, like, yelling at me. Like, I hear some stories, like, of kids when they're 12 and they just get, like, yelled at for not doing good. But they were super patient. Like if I wanted to talk about the game, then I could talk about it with them. If I wanted to, like, wait a day, if I did bad or something, then they would just, let me be. So yeah, they were super supportive. Love them to death.
Yeah, I realized when I did a little research, you come from a very diamond sports family, between your sisters playing softball at BYU, your brother played softball at BYU. Can you take us back to your early days? I think I probably know the answer after saying that, but what did it look like for you as a kid first being introduced to the game of softball?
Yeah, so my two older sisters have played softball too, so I kind of just, like, followed in their footsteps, I guess. And I played with one of my sisters is 3 years older than me, so, like, I was a freshman, she was a senior. So, like, we were kind of close in age, so when I was younger, we would play on some of the same teams, and then once we got older, we started to play against each other, which was actually kind of interesting. But yeah, so I started playing when I was, like, 5 maybe, like T-ball, then coach pitch, started club when I was, like, 8. Yeah, and then when I got into, like, I think, like, 5th grade, I moved to Arizona Storm, which is still an organization now. They're probably one of the best ones in Arizona. And then my recruiting really took off, like, because my team, my little Storm team was, like, talented. Like, we had a lot of good talent on that team. So my recruiting really took off, like, 6th, 7th grade, which is kind of crazy because it was before, like, the rule changes and stuff. So all the coaches were coming out to our games. We were going to showcases and stuff. And it was kind of interesting because, I don't know, I thought it was fun going on all the visits and seeing the campuses and stuff when I was that young, but I never really realized, like, what I was getting myself into, like, being so young and then committing so young. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience. It was really fun when I was younger, for sure, but I don't think I was as mature which is why I kind of like the rule change now, because I wasn't as mature to see different things and make other decisions. So yeah, that's kind of my history in a nutshell.
That's nuts. It's interesting. I was going to ask you your recruiting. So when did you actually commit initially? How old were you?
I was in 8th grade. I think I had just turned 14 maybe, or 13. It was the fall of my 8th grade year.
That's crazy to think, right, at 14. Did you know? Well, I guess you had older sisters, so and a brother.
Yeah.
Played, so that probably helped in yours. Like, if you had asked me what a college major is or things like that, I would have had no clue when I was that young.
Yeah, it definitely helped, because I'm the youngest in my family too, so having had older siblings who have gone through, like, similar experiences, definitely helped, because I could get advice from them, like, what they went through and what they would do different. So yeah, that's definitely nice being the younger sibling.
So you commit at that point to University of Oklahoma, and then are you still playing for the Storm at that point?
So I committed in October of that fall of my 8th grade year, and then that December I switched to Batbusters.
Just
So I
curious.
was playing for Storm at the time. Yeah, and then after I committed, I moved over to Batbusters. And then we started making the drive out there. And it was an experience. It was super fun. A lot of good memories for sure.
I have to imagine that has to be a family conversation, right? Of making that move to the Batbusters because of the commitment it was going to take for your parents to drive back and forth and to spend that time. Can you go back? Do you remember what that conversation was like and why you guys as a family decided to make that decision to start traveling to California every weekend to play for the Batbusters?
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a family decision. I knew once I committed, like, Because some people commit and they're like, oh, I'm good. But I knew once I committed, I needed to get better and I needed to get pushed and I needed to have new opportunities and new experiences. So my dad ultimately it was my decision. Like he put it up to me. So yeah, they were willing to, and I thought, why not? I need to get pushed and I need to see like my potential. So, and here we are now. So yeah.
I would say it worked out, but that's so interesting and great advice right there, by the way. I make sure we make a note of that, but just of, hey, once you commit, it's when work really starts, right? It's like you gotta keep going. It's not, hey, I'm good. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you go through an injury in high school?
Yes, I did. My junior year, I played volleyball and basketball in high school too. I stopped volleyball my junior year. I still played basketball, and then that season I tore my ACL and both my meniscuses in a game. So it wasn't playing softball, it was playing basketball, sadly. Well, yeah. But honestly, like, I'm so thankful. It's weird to say, but like, I'm thankful that I went through that injury because it taught me a lot, and I met like some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life, like going through physical therapy and stuff, and I got stronger. Like, they pushed me, a lot of mental and physical challenges, but I think it really like helped me in life, just going through hard times. Because up until that point, I hadn't ever really had an injury, like a sprained ankle here or there. But yeah, I really think it made me grow as a person, that's for sure. And I think it taught me some life lessons for the future.
That's a really good perspective. Funny, I tore my ACL playing basketball as a sophomore in high school, so I completely understand. Did you ever allow the doubt? Was there ever a moment in your head of like, shoot, I'm not gonna play sports again? Did that doubt ever come in? And if it did, how did you combat that?
Yeah, no, I was always like, because like I had a scholarship to go to college, so I was like, I'm getting better. And I went to this physical therapist place. It's called Exos. I'm sure you've probably heard of it, but it's also a training place too. Like a bunch of MLB, NBA, NFL people go there in their off season to train. So I pretty much had the best of the best helping me get back to where I needed to be. And their facilities are amazing. So I really had no doubt in my mind that I was going to make it back. It did take a while and I had to have patience, but I think it was worth it. So
what was it like coming back from the injury? Do you remember the first time you got back out on the field? Was there any fear, or were you mentally ready to go?
So I kind of like progressively went back into softball. So I didn't go straight into catching right away because like that's a lot of pressure on the knees and all that. But I would hit, and then base running wise, I wouldn't slide. So I would just be running the bases. Just Coach Mike didn't want me to re-injure it, so I think that was smart on his part. But yeah, so I would gradually go back. I would play first base and hit, and then I would catch like an inning here or there, just to get my body used to getting in that squat again, that deep squat, and moving around like that. So, and then probably like 4 or 5 months, maybe three or 4 months after I started getting back into it, I was catching full time. So,
nice. What would your advice be if because with the Alliance we have a lot of younger athletes, and unfortunately injuries happen, right? And I'm sure there's tons of fear, right, of just, hey, I'm not going to play again, I'm going to lose my scholarship, or maybe somebody's hasn't been recruited yet and they think they're this is going to ruin their chances. What would your advice be to a young athlete who is fighting back through an injury and going through that recovery process?
I would say if you're determined that you want to play softball in college and you want to get recruited, then you just got to work every day. Like, you got to go to PT every day, get your strength back, get your mobility back. It's not going to be easy, that's for sure. But if that's what you want ultimately, then you have to be determined and get what needs to be done. And fear-wise, it's always like there's always going to be a little fear, especially going back into something that you haven't done for a while. But just be patient with yourself. Don't get too angry that you can't do something right away. Be patient and just know that with time, it takes time, and with time it'll come. Especially if you have good people surrounding you with support, you can do anything. So
Love it. Love it. I want to pause for a minute to tell you about the Alliance Fastpitch. The Alliance Fastpitch is a national league system for amateur softball. I like to think of this as the pathway to play and the pathway to develop. If you're a youth softball coach or parent of a youth softball player, we know at the end of the day, you just want what's best for your daughter. But sometimes it's hard to figure out where to go or where to start. We're here to help you with that and to make your job easier. Softball is an important part of your life, but it's only a small part of your life. Think of the Alliance Fastpitch as your one-stop shop for everything. Build your fall, spring, summer schedule of tournaments inside your region. Compete on a level playing field to earn your national championship berth. Join a community of fellow youth softball coaches, parents, and athletes. Check out our national leaderboards for all ages. Understand where your daughter stacks up compared to her peers inside a region or even nationally. Help your daughter get recognized nationally through our player recognition programs. And get access to all of the discounts and benefits of being an annual Alliance member. We brought the best in the industry into one home, so we can provide softball families with access to the best resources at a more affordable price. We built the Alliance Fastpitch on two principles: collaboration and putting the athlete first. Together, we can grow. Together, we can do better for our athletes. Be a part of the fastest growing softball community. We're here to make your life easier and your experience in softball better. Join us today. Join the Alliance Fastpitch by going to thealliancefastpitch.com and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Well, let's go fast forward from being I guess that's actually pretty close in the time range. Not too long after your recovery there. Last summer, you were a part of our Alliance All-Star game. It was actually, you were the second ever class of the Alliance All-Stars. We're getting ready in a few days to kick off our third annual. Can you go back? What was one of your best memories and experience at the Alliance All-Star game last year?
I think obviously, like we walked into a locker room full of gear, and that was like hype. So that was like when we walked in there, everyone's jaw kind of dropped to the floor because we saw like our jerseys with our name on the back. Like it was super fun. But I think before that, you guys had like a little event where we did like a little media day and then a little testing. And I think that's where we all met each other kind of. And I think probably one of my most fun memories throughout the whole All-Star experience is meeting some of the girls that I would play with and in college, in the future, play against, because this past year I played against a lot of the girls who were on my all-star team. So yeah, I think just making the relationships and meeting new teammates and new players who are legit just was super cool. And like I follow a lot of them now, like we're still friends. So I think just building the relationships.
That class was pretty fun. That whole group was very entertaining there. What would your message be if there's any All-Stars listening right now and they're getting ready to, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have the media day and the testing day, and then they'll take the field. This year we're at Fullerton. We'll be in Southern California, but what would you tell them going into their All-Star experience?
I would say to take it all in, because they're all seniors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's your last year. Take it all in. Make memories, make friends, have the time of your life. Don't be nervous, because you just got to play free out there. Play free, be yourself, have fun. Even though there's probably going to be cameras on you, just give it your all.
Love that. It is true. It is like, it's fun, but it's also like there's this new hype and attention that we bring to it as well. It's good prep for you guys. I want to move into the Alliance Fastpitch Championship Series. I'm actually really excited to hear, because we didn't necessarily talk to the players. I talked to Coach Stith. I talked to Tony last year after you guys won it, but didn't really dive into the players' experience from going on a run, winning the national championship for the Alliance. So can you think back to what was the mindset of the Batbusters team? What was your approach going into the AFCS last year? Can you remember?
Our approach was just to fight because we had to take everyone. Well, like we had to use everyone to get to where we got to. So if one person wasn't all in, then we probably wouldn't have gotten to, the championship series. So everyone was on board. Everyone knew what we needed to do. Like we were gonna win, and it took fight. Like there were some games where we had to come back, and everyone was just that team just makes me smile every time I think about it because our chemistry was so good. Like everyone cared so much about each other, and like we still do. I still talk to like pretty much all of them on that team. I really care for each one of those girls. Like they were just the best. And our mind, like everyone was just like bulldogs. Like we did not care who we were playing. We did not care where we were playing. Like we were gonna win, and that was that. So
You guys actually you lost inside the national championship. I think it was maybe inside the Elite Eight that you guys lost, and then you had to come back and beat Firecrackers Rico twice. But I think you lost. Actually,
yeah.
correctly, you got run ruled. Do you remember what the conversation was? Just even amongst yourselves after you lost that game in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it was the Elite Eight. And it's funny because it was against the same team that we played in the championship series, and then we beat them twice. So, and it's kind of crazy because earlier on in the summer we played them at Top Gun in Oklahoma City, and they had knocked us into the losers bracket in that tournament too. And then we came back and we both met in the championship, and we ended up beating them too. So it was kind of like deja vu in a sense because they had knocked us into the losers bracket. We didn't have all the pitching in the world. We really only had like 2 or 3 pitchers and 1 ace. So I think the depth kind of got to us that game. But after that game, like everyone really just shook it off. Like we really didn't care because obviously we didn't give it our best that game because we got run rolled. But everyone shook it off and we were ready to go the next day. And then I think we played Mercado, and that was an intense game for sure. It was like going back and forth every inning, like who knew what was going to happen. And then we had to double dip Rico after that. So yeah, we had to come back through the losers bracket, but we were tough and we were ready. And then the next day we ended up playing Bombers again, and then double dipped them too. So because the championship series is best 2 out of 3, so we were like, we're not going to 3 games. We're beating them in 2.
I get chills thinking about that because that Batbusters versus Athletics Mercado was an elimination game inside the Elite Eight, and that's what I think of all the players and the talent on that. Like even as a fan, I'm watching and like, dang, one of these teams is going home. Like it almost just doesn't seem right. Same thing when then you guys had to double dip Rico to go into the championship series. And I'm going to come back to the AFCS. I'm kind of skipping ahead, but not only did you win a national championship at 18 under, you go on to win a national championship with the University of Oklahoma this past year. Going through that format, did that help at all? We talk about it that like we want to help prepare you guys, but as an athlete, I'm curious, did going through the format with the AFCS and kind of how we do things, do you think that helped prepare you for college in the postseason that you guys went through?
I definitely think it did, because there's really no other tournament who does that type of format. And even like in club ball, like there's very few games where we play 7 innings, which is crazy because in college it's all 7 innings. So like in club ball, it'd be like an hour 15 drop dead, and then like we have to play like 4 or 5 games in a day, but they're like only an hour long. So I think the format really helps for sure, especially like with the grind and having to play like 2 games, 3 games in a day. Because in college, like double headers are tough on the body, that's for sure. And so a 7-inning game is a long game. So I think the format definitely helped, especially like the Elite Eight type, like in the World Series, it's only 8 teams. And then the championship series, it being best 2 out of 3, I think is very helpful.
It's funny, by the way, what a difference 1 year can make of when you play 4 or 5 games in a day in travel ball, but double headers in college, I don't know what it is. They seem so long, so long.
They really are, especially like obviously we run a little team this past year because we were like, okay, we're getting down to 5, like that's what's happening. But when we wouldn't run rule, it would be so long. Like it'd be like 3 hours. I think like our game against Clemson was like 4 hours long. Like it was the longest game I've ever played in my entire life.
That was a very good game. Now I'm going to go to talk about your performance last year at the AFCS, and you probably had no idea, but I remember at one point of watching in the championship series, and we're watching the live leaderboards of the stats, and at the top of all these offensive categories, you see Jocelyn Erickson, and you hit a home run in game 2 that actually then puts you at the top of the home run leaders. Did you have any idea of those things, and did you have any idea actually of what a Triple Crown meant?
I had no idea. I was just playing. Like I was like, we're playing to win. Like we're getting this national championship. I had no idea like how many home runs I had or like what my batting average was. Like I really didn't care. I just wanted to help my team and win. And like me being a senior, like it's my last year. I'm trying to go out with a bang. So I was just trying to do my best. And no, I didn't even know what a Triple Crown was either. So it was kind of cool. Like when you announced that after the end of the game, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wait, what? I have no idea what's going on right now.
That's so funny. I was wondering because when I said it, right, of Triple Crown, I want to give a little bit of context through, but I'm sure baseball players definitely know what the Triple Crown is. But incredible because you did that against really, really good competition too, right? That wasn't against just anybody. What was that feeling? What was that like? Of you're a senior at this point, it's your last travel ball. And in our world, we know too what a travel ball schedule is and how much time you spend with those teammates, and like they truly become some of your best friends. But what was that moment like when you get the last out? I have goosebumps thinking about it. You're catching it, right? The last out, Ryan's throwing to you. You get to dogpile. Take us through that moment and what you experienced.
So I had never won a national championship before. So I had won a state championship in high school and we dogpiled, but I had never won like for club before. So, and I don't really think any of the girls on the team had either. So, but we knew we were dogpiling because we don't dogpile at any other tournament except the last tournament of the summer. So yeah, so I catch the ball. I think the pitch before that, she gets a swing and miss. And I'm like, okay, lit, we have 2 strikes now. And then she throws. I called the same pitch because I think I was calling pitches at that time. I called the same pitch because I was like, she's going to swing and miss again. And then Orion throws it. She swings and miss. We just ran to each other. I chugged the ball, chugged the helmet. It was insane. Everyone, Liv's holding like the GoPro running out of the dugout and everyone's just going crazy. It was so fun. Like, oh my gosh, just thinking about that makes me so happy again.
It's cool. It's such a cool moment. Not something you get to practice very often either, right? A dogpile, like you just gotta go for it.
Yeah, YOLO.
Well, I want to. So you spend a year at University of Oklahoma, and what you guys did is absolutely incredible. What was one of the things you might not have been prepared for? Well, after this travel ball career, you had a very successful high school career. Travel ball, you're stepping foot on a team that just won back-to-back national championships. What was that experience like, first off, going into the fall and going into your first fall practice at Oklahoma?
I think, so I had played with a couple of the girls on the team, obviously, because they had been on Batbusters before, so I knew some of them. And like Grace Lyons is from Arizona too. She went to my high school, so I knew her too. And they were super welcoming. Like we would go do stuff when all the freshmen first got there and like get used to all the other girls on the team. I think some of the stuff I wasn't necessarily prepared for, because like club ball, like with Batbusters, we would just practice on the weekends and play on the weekends. So like throughout the week, I would have more time for my individual like preparing or like hitting and all that. And I think I wasn't necessarily prepared for the amount of time that I wouldn't have in college. It's definitely you definitely need to learn time management as a freshman, because the student athlete schedule is very demanding. Workouts in the morning, then it's class. I recommend doing online because then you don't have to necessarily go into class. But like my major is business marketing, so a lot of the business classes were in person, so I had to go in person a lot. But yeah, so it's workouts, it's class, and then it's practice for 3 hours, and then it's homework, study, eat, don't forget to eat, and then sleep, and then repeat. It's pretty much the same day over and over again. Obviously, like things you do in classes are different, and like practice varies, but it's pretty much the same schedule, especially in the fall. In the fall, you're trying to build your strength, you're trying to build your speed in order to be the best you can be in the spring. So it's very demanding mentally and physically. And then going into the spring, I think what I wasn't prepared for was how long the season is. Because high school season is like 2 months maybe, and then like travel ball season in the summer is like 2 months. So, but then college season is like, and if you make it far in postseason, it's like 3 or 4 months. So it's definitely longer. And it's a grind, but it's worth it in the end. So whoever is wanting to go play college softball out there, just put in the work, trust the process, and good things will happen.
Yeah, that's fair. It is. It's a grind, and you see the commitment that goes into it. I'm curious. I mean, you're playing on a team where the entire bench could start probably. I mean, anywhere else, right? And compete for a national championship. For you, I have to imagine that's one of the first times of kind of going in and out of the lineup or being a quote unquote role player, or in certain situations. Was that an adjustment for you at all? Were there any moments that it was tough just to kind of change that role of, who you were or what your role on the team was?
I think, so when I first joined Batbusters, I was on Mark Campbell's team, 14U. And then after that summer, my freshman year, I moved up to Mike's team. So my freshman year, I really didn't play a lot either, because I had 2 other senior catchers in front of me. So it was more just like a learning year kind of. And I'm thankful though for that, because I think it helped prepare me for this for college freshman year. So I had kind of been there before, but in a different way. I was definitely more of a role player this year than my freshman year in high school, but it was a little hard, like getting jerked in and out of the lineup and not knowing like when I'm hitting or like but I think an advice for anyone who is going to be in like a role player position like that, just be flexible and be prepared at all times. No, like if your coach needs you in, like you got to go in, you got to be ready, you got to help the team in any way you can. So yeah, I think that would be my advice.
It's great advice. It's not easy to do, and I'm speaking from experience here of being somebody when I was a freshman at Texas A&M, and I was the only freshman in my class that didn't start. And it's just, it's humbling a little bit or it was for me. And it's like, okay, but then you kind of switch on and like, I'm here to win and to help the team, but you have to stay prepared the whole time. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. Like, hey, you grab a bat, you're coming in the 7th inning when the game's on the line. So like, go get ready. Like, it's crazy. And that's
especially when you're in the dugout, like you have to say, I feel like when you're on the field, it's easier to stay focused because like you got to be focused when you're on the field. In the dugout, it's hard because sometimes, you days off or like are looking somewhere else, but like you got to be like on it still in the dugout because you never know like when it's going to be your turn. So it's hard, but you got to do what you got to do.
It's real, right? It's a part of that level too. What, if you're up for talking about it, obviously I was gonna say your summer might be the first summer not playing softball, right? Which is already an adjustment, but you made a personal decision to enter the transfer portal, which is something new, and it's in college softball. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? Because us old people who didn't have it, right? We have no idea. We just followed along on Twitter what's going on. But for the athletes that are actually in it, can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so I guess your first question, not playing softball this summer, I actually think it's kind of like recovery for me because the season was so long and like we went so deep. Obviously, like we won it all. So it's kind of nice having a break. And I like to see like my past team, like how they're doing and stuff. Like I'll watch a game here or there. But yeah, so the transfer portal. So I decided to go in a little later than like I think other people, like right when their season ended, they would just go in. But it's definitely a hard decision whether like you want to go in or not. So I was debating if I was going to go back for another year or what I wanted to do. Ultimately, like I decided to go in because I only got 3 years left to play, so I kind of just wanted to make the most of them. So yeah, I went in like 3 days before the portal was going to close. So yeah, it was kind of like a last minute little thing, but it definitely took a lot of thought and a lot of prayer. And when I went in that day, I was bombarded by coaches and friends and teammates and all sorts of people. Because like it's public, like people know when you go in, and the word spreads, and the softball world is small, like everyone knows everyone, so it was kind of crazy. And then that whole week I pretty much spent my time talking with coaches and texting them back and communicating, like, and then I had to narrow down. Just thinking about it like makes me like, oh man, I'm glad I'm done with that. But had to narrow down schools because a lot of schools would reach out. And I don't know if it's like that for every player. I'm assuming probably, because I feel like pretty much like a lot of coaches live in the portal because they kind of need some support in their team, especially with pitchers too. But yeah, so going through, I was just trying to narrow down where I'd want to go and what schools I'd be interested in. And then that next week, I set up some visits, and then I spent that whole week because I was like, I got in late. I need to just get all my visits done so that I know what I'm doing with my life and I can like move on. So yeah, so I got all my visits done, and then ultimately I chose Florida, and now we're working on that process, and I'm excited to go there.
It's like you're back to being in 8th grade all over again, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of weird because it's different because like I'm more mature and I can talk to coaches more. Like talking on the phone with a coach when I was like 12, I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, why do I have to call a college coach right now? Like, this sucks. But now it's like they're just people. Like, just talk to them. It's so much easier. Like, you're mature. You know what to talk about, like, you know what you want, especially, like, being in the transfer portal, like, you're in there for a reason, you know what you want, and you know what, like, you deserve and ultimately want for your future. So it was kind of like my recruiting process in 8th grade, but I definitely think this was a better experience because I got to connect with more coaches and not being committed so young, so.
By the way, think of it on the other side. Think of that college coach talking to a 12-year-old or 14-year-old. Like, of how, like, hey, would you eat for lunch today? You know,
they're probably like, how am I supposed to keep the conversation going? All they're saying is, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. I remember, like, I never talked to 12-year-olds, but it was still like 16, 17-year-olds. It's like, all right, so, like, you know, how was school? It's so funny dynamic.
The weather is pretty nice outside.
Yeah. Always goes back to softball, though. Well, let's have so I like to end with rapid fire. So I'm gonna ask some fun questions, hopefully. And the first thing that comes to mind, if you can.
Okay.
Most vivid memory of travel ball. It's the first thing that comes to mind.
Vivid memory of travel ball. Obviously winning the national championship, like, by far.
What was the, like, team specific?
Recent and most memorable, so.
Who was the funniest teammate on the 18U team last year that won the championship? Who kept the team going?
Maya Bland.
What was your advice?
She would have been my teammate this next year. And I was super excited to play with her, but obviously the plans change. But she is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. And anyone who knows her knows, like, she's hilarious. So
you gotta have that person on the team too.
She's a goofball.
What would your advice be? And it was crazy because there were 2 left-handed catchers on your team. What would your advice be to, like, how about this? Why is being a left-handed catcher, like, why do people think that's so different or, difficult, I guess?
I think they think it's difficult because honestly, the only thing I can think of is like plays at the plate. Like that's really the only thing that like is a little more difficult because our hands on the opposite side, but like I still tag people out at home plate. Like it's not that difficult. But I think a huge advantage of a left-handed catcher is picking people off first base because like we don't have to turn our body. They really don't see it coming. Like that's one of my favorite things to do is throw down to first base because everyone's just like shocked. But yeah, honestly, I don't know why people think it's like. I think it's just because like we live in a right-handed world. Like there's not many positions on the field where you can be left-handed other than like outfield, first base, and pitcher. But to all my left-handed catchers out there, you're legit and you can do it.
It is a right-hander's world. I feel bad for, and I'm right-handed, but my sister is left-handed. I'm like, I just feel bad for you. Who is the toughest pitcher that you've ever faced?
In college and travel? Or...
Yeah, let's do both.
Well, I mean, first thing that comes to mind is Jordy Ball because I faced her in practice so many times. And Jordy Ball or, I mean, everyone was getting carved up by Nyjah this season. So I would say Nyjah.
Nyjah did have quite another fellow Alliance All-Star right there. Were you guys on the same All-Star team or did you play against each other?
We were on the same. I caught her for a couple innings. She's super cool, super nice.
That's it. That was going to be my next question. Who, in calling your own game, who's been the most fun pitcher to call a game for and why?
So yeah, in travel, I call a lot of the games because Coach Nick is the pitch caller and he had a lot of trust in me. So I think obviously like in club ball, I would call for Ryan and she pretty much never missed a spot. Like if you wanted her to throw somewhere, she'd throw it. She never backs down from a challenge. She's a fierce little competitor on the mound, that's for sure. She's gonna do great things at Arizona this next year too, and I'm excited to see her in the Alliance tournament, see what she can do.
Well, that leads right into my next question here. And by the time this comes out, this will be public knowledge, but the Batbusters are the number 1 seed this year, the reigning champions. You know how it is. Like trying to defend a title is not going to be easy. Number 1 seed. Last year, you guys were the 3 seed. Give us the scouting report. So many returning players from your Batbusters team last year. What's the scouting report on the team? Without giving the secrets.
Scouting report. Yeah, the Batbusters are still legit this year. They're coming back for revenge from their last tournament, so everybody better watch out. But this last year, I think we lost like 7 seniors. Like we lost a lot of seniors. But they're still coming back with some punches. They filled those spots. Obviously, Ryan on the mound, she's legit. And then a couple of my fellow Arizonans are on the team as well. Jade and Janae Berry, they are from Queen Creek. Jade is going to be going to Stanford this next year. They're legit. Janae's a pitcher, and then Jade is an infielder. And then Gabby Garcia is also from Arizona. She's their shortstop. She is from, she goes to Basha, so I think from like Gilbert area. She's going to OU in 2 years, I think. So they're all legit. Love my Arizonians. And then obviously Ella Parker and Taylor Shoemaker. They're what get the game rolling and their offensive power. So, and Reagan Shockey with her speed. They all get the party started. So everybody better watch out.
Who would be most likely this year to win the Triple Crown?
I gotta say Taylor because she's on fire right now, and I don't know what's gonna stop her because she's just on a roll, and she's gonna be a future Gator as well. So kind of biased that way now. So I would say Taylor.
I literally watched her at our Super Cup dive over center field and rob a home run, and then the next inning hits a home run. So yeah, I think you're spot on there.
Yeah. Side note, one of my favorite memories from travel ball this past summer, we were at, I think it was TC Nationals, TCS Nationals, and we were playing Mercado. I think it was in the championship, and we were up 2-0 in like the top of the 7th or something, and this girl hits a laser on Mercado. This girl hits a laser to center field. There's a runner on base. It's going over the fence. Taylor rubs the ball, and then we end up winning because she rubbed that home run. I was literally so hype at behind the plate. I was like, you're kidding right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I didn't realize that you played for Mark Kimball. Can you talk a little bit about, and I was fortunate to get to meet Mark and watch him coaching, and for anybody who hasn't, Mark left such a legacy in the players that he's coached. What's your best memory of Coach Mark Kimball?
Mark is a hardcore, that's for sure. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have been on the Batbusters, because that's who my dad contacted, and he came out and watched me and said, yep, she's gonna be on my team. And he has so much faith and trust in his players, and he just wants them to get better. He wants them to be the best people and best players possible. He's such a great person. Just really wants the best for everyone. And yeah, he's hardcore and he'll yell at you, but he knows what's best for you. So everyone loves him. He's the best.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of love behind that yelling there. And then finally, another one of your coaches, Mike Stith. Do you have a Mike Stith quote or something, imitation of Coach Stith that you guys as players would emulate? I guess. What's a best Mike Stith quote?
I don't know about like imitation or like quotes or anything, but some of the things he says are just so hilarious because he's so sarcastic, especially like when he's yelling at you. If you're not the person being yelled at, then it's hilarious. But if you're the person being yelled at, it's like, oh crap, like what did I just do? But yeah, watching from like the outside, he's so sarcastic and his comments are just hilarious, but like, and they're like what everyone's thinking, but he just says it. So I think that's what makes him one of like the best coaches ever, is because he's just transparent. He says what he thinks and wants the best for his players, obviously, but he knows when you need to be pushed and when you need a little break. But yeah, he's a funny guy. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you're the player not being yelled at, then it's funny. Well, Josh, this was fun.
Like, oh shoot.
This was awesome. Like I said, you're the very first actually Alliance player that we've ever had on the podcast. I think so many relevant things too that what you're talking about and you've just been through is so relatable for our athletes. So I really appreciate you being on. And last question before we close it out. On to new journey. You still have 3 years left in college. Hopefully continue to play after that as well. What do you want your legacy in the sport to be?
I want my legacy to be confidence and leadership, and I want my teammates to know that I have their back, especially being in catcher. Those are the 3 things I want for them to know.
Love it. Well, thank you for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and I wish you the best of luck this season.
Thank you for having me. Good luck with all your events going on and the tournament.
Hey guys, we hope you're enjoying the Car Ride Home podcast. Hopefully we're filling the air and making your car ride home a little bit more enjoyable. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, and leave us a review. If you have any special guest or requests that you'd like to hear, or have us bring a guest or a story onto the podcast, shoot us an email, info@thealliancefastpitch.com. We'd love to hear from you.